I want you to imagine something very uncomfortable for a moment. You walk into your workplace on a normal morning. Nothing feels different. You've done this for years, maybe even decades. And before lunch, you are told your job no longer exists. No warning you understood, no slow goodbye, just a sentence that changes everything you planned for the next 10 years. And the strange part is, this is not rare anymore. That is exactly what Robert said to me one night at the kitchen table, and I didn't fully understand it until I started seeing it happen again and again. People don't always retire when they choose to. Most of the time, life decides for them first. And if you are a Gen Xer listening to this right now, I need you to stay with me because what I'm about to say could quietly change how you look at your next 10 to 15 years. Most people are not actually retiring when they plan to retire. They are being forced into it earlier than expected, sometimes suddenly, sometimes quietly, and sometimes in a way that feels like the ground just disappears under them. I've seen it happen enough times now that I don't call it coincidence anymore. The first reason this matters is something nobody likes to admit. You may not actually reach your planned retirement age in the way you imagine it. I've seen people who were counting down the years to 65 suddenly find themselves out of work at 58 or 60, not because they made a decision, but because something changed around them. A restructure, a policy shift, a health issue, or simply being seen as too expensive in a world that moves faster than loyalty. And the worst part is not the exit itself. It is the shock of realizing you thought you were in control of the timeline when in reality, you weren't. The second reason hits even harder when you sit with it long enough. Your health does not wait for your retirement plan to be ready. I used to believe, like many people do, that health decline is something that happens later, almost neatly after you stop working. But life doesn't follow that schedule. I've seen exhaustion build quietly over years, stress settle into the body in ways people ignore, and small warning signs dismissed because there's still time. But time doesn't negotiate. And there is a point where energy becomes the real currency, not money, not plans, not ambition, just energy. Then there is something that quietly traps so many people without them realizing it until they are already inside it. I call it the squeezed life, though no one calls it that while they are living it. You are supporting aging parents, still helping grown or semi-grown children, and still carrying a demanding job that doesn't slow down just because your life outside of it is getting heavier. I've seen people move through their days like they are balancing 3 full lives at once. And what breaks first is not always money or time. It is the person themselves. And by the time they notice it, they are already too deep in it to step out easily. The fourth reason is where expectations and reality quietly separate. Most people believe they need far more money than they actually end up using once they step away from work pressure. I've watched this happen in real time. The moment people leave the constant cycle of earning, spending, and maintaining appearances, something shifts. Their life simplifies even if their circumstances don't dramatically change. The pressure drops, and with it, so do many of the expenses they thought were permanent. But here's the problem. Most people only realize this after they have already spent years overworking to chase a number that never needed to be that high in the first place. And then comes the fifth reason, the one that rarely announces itself until it is already happening. Life has a way of forcing clarity on you whether you are ready or not. A medical call, a family situation, a sudden loss of ability, or just a moment where everything slows down enough for you to see your life from a distance. I've seen people sit in those moments and say the same thing in different words. I didn't think it would come this fast. But it always feels fast in hindsight, even when the signs were there all along. What I've learned from watching all of this is not that retirement is bad or that work is meaningless. It is something more uncomfortable than that. It is that waiting too long can quietly cost you the version of your life you assumed would still be waiting for you later. The healthier years, the lighter years, the years where movement felt easier and time felt wider, those are not guaranteed to align with your ideal retirement date. And that mismatch is where regret often begins. I remember Robert saying something I didn't fully understand at first, but I think about it often now. He said, "People don't break down all at once. They just slowly stop being able to do what they used to ignore." That sentence stayed with me because it explained so much of what I had been watching without having the words for it. It is rarely one big moment. It is accumulation, small shifts, quiet adjustments, until suddenly the life you thought was still ahead of you feels different than expected. And here is the part that makes this all difficult to ignore. Most people are planning their retirement based on a version of life that assumes stability will hold, health will cooperate, and work will continue on their timeline. But life does not operate on guarantees. It operates on change, and those changes rarely wait for paperwork or financial readiness. So when I say this next part, I am not trying to push urgency for the sake of fear. I am saying it because I've seen too many people realize it after it mattered. Retirement is not only a financial decision, it is a timing decision. And timing is one of the few things you cannot rebuild once it passes. Because one day, without warning, you are not thinking about spreadsheets or savings or job titles anymore. You are thinking about time, how much you had, how much you spent, and how much you assumed would always still be available later. And that is the moment most people wish they had listened earlier, not to advice, not to predictions, but to the quiet warning that life does not always wait for your plans to catch up with it.